So I think one of the most crucial skills any guitar player can learn is the ability to embellish their open chords. We've looked at this in a couple of my lessons recently, and today I thought it'd be really fun if we took a well-known chord progression from a classic old tune and looked at some cool ways to spice it up a bit. And the song that we're referencing here for our chord progression is Can't Find My Way Home by Blind Faith. That's the group that had Steve Winwood, Eric Clapton and Ginger Baker in, a bit of a supergroup from the 60s. But like I say, this progression is extremely common and is featured in a lot of songs, so I'm sure you'll find it familiar even if you've never heard this particular tune. Although I do recommend checking it out because it's a great song. So first of all, let's just look at the basic way of playing these changes before we really get deep into them and take them to the next level. This is a C add 9 chord. So we have something interesting happening here straight away. C add 9, you're probably used to seeing it played this way, with the second fret of the D string. That would be the major third of the C chord. In this instance, we're going to take that finger off and make that string open. So now we have the 9 in there twice. Open D string, and then the same note an octave higher on the third fret of the B string. Now you might be saying, okay, well, because there's no third, surely this should now be called a C sus2. And you could do that. But later on, as you'll see, we start playing around with adding that E note in on the open top string, thus putting the third back in. So in my mind, anyway, I'm thinking of this as C add 9. Okay, then we move that bass note down a semitone, and now we have G over B. You can quite clearly see how this would just be the majority of this bigger picture G major chord shape, right? Then we go again with that bass note down a semitone. Now this could be seen as a few things. You might think of it as a B flat 6 type of chord, but context-wise I'm thinking of this as a G minor chord in first inversion. So this would be the minor third, the fifth, the root, and then again you've got the fifth and the root. So a cool G minor voicing, and then it goes back to D. And part of the reason I think of that chord as a G minor is because it goes to D next, and that would form a very common type of progression that we've spoken about a lot on this channel. You know, you'd have a 4, go into the 4 minor, and then to the 1, that plagal cadence thing. And this is why the context of functional harmony needs to be taken into account before defining the name of a chord. Anyway, after we get back to that D chord, we go to F, then to G, and then back to the D. And that's the whole progression. There is a chorus part of the song, but we're not going to touch upon that. We're just going to use this as our basis. So let's break down exactly what I played in the opening performance. And of course, the full note-for-note tab and notation for this is available at the links in the description. So we're going to be doing a lot of chord arpeggiating here, and we start off by setting up a C add 9 in our left hand. And the first thing we're going to do is hybrid pick strings A and B together. So I'm using the plectrum on string A and my second finger to pluck the B string. And then using the pick for the remaining notes, we arpeggiate our way down through the chord on the top strings. Then we do a similar thing on the next chord, but without the hybrid picking. Be sure to be crisp and clear with your pick attack, hitting only the strings you want to hit. There's the G minor over B flat. And then we go to the D and do one of these beautiful rakes into a hammer-on. I like to use this move a lot. You know, really we're setting up with a D sus2 type of chord, so there's that open E string on top. But the moment you get through the chord, hammer on to that major third, and then we kind of go back the way we came. A little fast pull-off, and then picking back through the strings. So now you've got... And then I hit the open E string in the bass as a leading note into that F chord, that F root note. Now for this F chord, I'm hooking my thumb over to play the root, and I've really just got this F major triad on strings D, G and B there. And again, similar to what we did on the D chord, we're starting with more of a sus2 thing. So there's that open G in there, but the moment you strike, you hammer onto the major third, and then go back the way you came. It's quite Hendrixy sounding to me, that. And then we drag that shape up 2 frets so it becomes a G chord. This time we're making the point of getting this open G string involved again, to get that lovely doubled note between this fretted note and this open string. That's going to come in handy later on. Now we play kind of a bluegrass or folky sounding thing, hammering on from the 4th fret to the 5th fret on the D string, and then going back up through the strings again. Sounds great, kind of bagpipe sounding. And then we go to the D chord, where again, we're hammering on. This time we're going from the 4th to the 5th of the chord, so like a sus4 thing. Whereas this was sus2, this is sus4 with a hammer on. And again, that's a common thing in bluegrass music. And then staying with that sort of bluegrass flavour, we're going to come down a D minor blues scale. So what I'd recommend here to get comfortable with that kind of thing is being really good with your open position pentatonics. It's something that I spoke a lot about in my previous video on country blues playing, so do check that out. For example here, the D chord, you can think about how the D minor pentatonic or the D minor blues scale would overlap within this zone. It's a very important thing to be able to see. Now, as we know with the pentatonics, they're a bit of a mystery in that you can use a minor pentatonic over a major type of chord. But taking this one step further, this D chord here, we don't actually have the 3rd present anyway. So who's to say whether we're thinking major or minor? We're kind of free to not lock in with either. And then we're going to walk up the bass back to the beginning of our progression. Remember, we're targeting the C-add 9 type of shape. Now for this cycle round, we're going to take off our pinky, like we hinted at earlier, to make that open E string available, to bring that major 3rd back into the chord. And now we're going to do a similar picking pattern to before. Keeping that open string on top all the way through. And then, exactly as before, but this time on G, instead of moving up 2 frets, we're going to go to this G major chord here, which is kind of an interesting voicing. I've got my 3rd finger on the root, and I'm consciously blocking the A string, because of course we don't want that note in the chord. I'm striking strings D, G and B as well, and making a point to not include the top string. You can either try your luck and try and strike the whole thing, and hope that you don't connect with that top string, or you could be a little more methodical about it, and actually rake through the chord and do a rest stroke on the top string to control it. Then I'm hitting the open G string, again kind of a bluegrass lick here, sliding in from minor to major 3rd, and then connecting back to another D5, a D power chord. And then thinking of the bluegrass flavour again, this time we look at the major side of that sound. So we're thinking D major pentatonic, and we start by walking in chromatically to the major 3rd on that low E string. And then we continue on through the scale, using open strings where possible. Still in the scale here, but then we go out of the scale to grab the minor 3rd and slide to the 2nd degree of the scale, bringing that more bluesy flavour. Takes us back to the C chord really nicely to start the next rotation round the chord changes. And in keeping with our theme so far of refreshing the way we play those chords each time, for this 3rd time we're going to do it slightly differently again. Again, we're keeping this little finger out of the equation for now, but we're not even going to bring that string in. We're going to focus more on the lower notes of the chord. So we're picking A string, D string, B string, G string each time. Back to that hammer on onto the D chord, or the D5 if we're being really particular. And then this time we do a rundown that's just the D major scale. A little pull off from 2 to 0 on the G string, and down the scale 4, 2, 0 on the D string, open A, before going to the F as usual. That Hendrixy thing. Slide up 2 frets, and again make a point of getting a clean connection here, so you're getting that lovely doubled note. We're going to now make that doubled note really shine by doing one of these bends. It can be a bit tricky to do this. You want to be using the 2nd finger on that 4th fret of the D string, get a good strike, and bend up until you match the pitch of that open G. And then let it come down, and be thinking of this D major triad on the low string set, one of my favourite shapes. I'm sure you'll know if you're a regular to the channel. So that would be a second inversion triad, because you've got the fifth in the bass, the root, and then the third. Now we use one of these really common enclosures around the major third. Remember, we're thinking of a D chord here, so the third would be this note here, the second fret of the low string, that's an F sharp. We go either side of it. That's how simple an enclosure can be. You see your target, you kind of beat around the bush before you get there. And then we bring the root in here. That's quite a cool sound, isn't it? Anyway, and then we walk down chromatically this time to get back to that C note to start the next round. Now again, a new way of voicing these chords. We're going to go back to basics to begin with and play just a regular C chord instead of a C add 9. And we pick the same kind of pattern as before. Notice how on the way out of that C chord I lifted the second finger to get that open D string just before moving to that G over B. Sounds a bit more elegant. And then to that G minor over B flat, where we do a little bit of decorative stuff on that D chord. G minor over B flat, D, D sus 2. Nice timing there as well. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the F. And then we get a bit bluesy. Just a very simple blues idea that I'm sure you've seen many times. A G major triad on the first string set, hammering on from the minor to the major third, and picking the top two strings together. And then again thinking of a D minor pentatonic or a D minor blues scale. Unlike the first time where we were thinking of open position, we're thinking of the next position along. I really like this position. If you're thinking of the caged system, this is kind of within your C shape. So you could be thinking of a D major or a D minor or a D7, which works really well for the blues vibe. And look at how that shape of the scale would fit in and around there. You could also refer to it as shape 3 if you're thinking of your 5 pentatonic shapes. And here's that lick we're going to play, but slowed down. Make sure that on this portion of it, you try and get a bit of momentum carrying through with you, so you can pick once here, and then play the remainder of those notes on that string legato. So that would be a slide, a pull off, a hammer on, and then pick the remaining notes of the lick. And this kind of thing is really good to work on in isolation. Gradually build it up. Now for our final go around the progression, we're going to do kind of a hybrid of what we did on the third and first times through to begin with. We're focusing on the C add 9 here without the top string involved, so just the middle 4 strings. And then we go back to what we did on the first time for the G minor over B flat and the D. That little passing note to the F. Then we let the tempo slow. And use that same technique we used a while back to get that kind of unison bagpipey drone. It can sound really cool when you do these reverse rakes. And let this major triad just run its course and you're done. Great, so you've made it note for note through the study, but now it's on you to take these concepts and make them part of your own playing and elevate them to the next level. So let's just summarize through the main concepts that were covered. We had things like our major triads. Let's take a D chord. You've got to know these triads really well. This is just one stack in that location. String set 1, 2, 3, and 4. Also know how to play your major pentatonic in open position. D minor pentatonic in open position with the blue note added in. And a handful of different ways to play the same chord. So C, for example, how many ways did we play that? We played C add 9 with the top string involved there on the 3rd fret. We did C add 9 with the open string on top. We did C add 9 with just the middle 4 strings. And we also did a plain old C major. It's all about having a lot of options under your fingers so you can keep things fresh and exciting for yourself and for the listener. Simple little variations on a chord, like on the D chord from a sus2 to a major, or a major to a sus4, those classic rock moves. A bit of D major scale as well. Common bluegrass licks for a G chord, or a D chord, or a C chord, and so on. So those were our main concepts. Now it's your job to go and absorb those things and move them to other keys and really own them, so you can do your own thing with them. Okay, so let's close out with a bit of tone talk. This is my nachocaster, just an incredible telecaster, as on the middle position, so that's these two pickups kind of together. These are the original nachocaster pickups, his 50s wind, and they sound fantastic. And this is running into a Vemuram Shanks pedal, which is like a refined version of the Noble's ODR1. Brilliant little light overdrive, does medium gain nicely as well. But I tend to use this quite low gain. Gain is set at about 10 o'clock, same as the volume. Tone is just past 10 o'clock. For reverb, I'm using the Strymon Flint on the 60s spring tank mode, and this is going into my 1964 Fender Bassman with the matching 2x12 cab. Let me just see if I can zoom in on it there for you. Don't know if you can see it back there. There we go. Brilliant sounding amp, just the greatest pedal platform you can get, really. Fantastic stuff. And I'm recording that with the Universal Audio aux box just to make life a little bit simpler. You know, that's the norm for my channel. Pretty much every video you've seen, that's what I've been using to record it. That goes out into my interface, which is a Universal Audio Apollo Twin. And then that hits the computer, goes straight into Logic Pro, where I do the smallest little bit of refinement, just cutting out some low end usually, adding a very light amount of compression. And that's it, that's how we get that sound. And it's a good sound, isn't it? It's that edge of breakup thing, where it's kind of clean and dirty at the same time. And the idea with that, of course, is that you get full control over your dynamics and the amount of overdrive just with your pick attack. So if you pick very lightly, sounds basically clean, right? But if we pick hard, it's going to give up some of that lovely dirt. And the bridge pickup will give us even more of that stuff. So any good quality overdrive should be able to do that for you. If you want my recommendations, I love this pedal, the Vemuram Shanks, but I also really love the Brown Amps Carbon, which is also one half of the Protein pedal that they make. Really good at this sort of tone as well. And two classic pedals that do it really well, the Boss OD3 or the Boss Blues Driver, the BD2. Both really good at doing this and very affordable, easy to find pedals. The strings on this guitar are Stringjoy Broadways. Fantastic vintage flavoured strings, gauge 10 to 46. These are pure nickel and they're round core, so they really do have that old classic kind of vibe to them. Okay guys, so please do leave a comment down below and hit that like button, and if you're not already subscribed, please do that too. All of these things make a massive difference to the channel, and without it, it just doesn't survive. Also, check out my Patreon page if you want to get hold of all of my lesson materials for this one and all of the lessons that I've done. And the place really does have a great vibe. Lots of interaction, loads of engagement, lots of interesting conversations going on between great guitar players. So yeah, do check that out if you get a chance. And first and foremost, do enjoy playing the guitar, enjoy working on these things. My motto is always that even if you only take one thing from a video, make sure that that one thing is something that you truly make your own and do something useful with it. Okay guys, see you next time for something completely different. Alright, take care.